Good afternoon. Today we are going to be discussing how to calculate slope from a function table. We've already learned how to calculate slope from a graph and slope from 2 points. So today we're going to focus more on how to calculate slope from a table. So the first thing that we're going to look at is how do we do it. Okay, so you'll see on your page here that we have this slope is equal to, and you'll see triangle y and triangle x. Well, all that triangle means is the word change. Okay, so what we say here is to find slope from a table, we find the change in y over the change in x. Okay, this can also be written as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so that's still the change in y over the change in x. So let's look at some examples together and see how we do. All right, so let's look here at number 1, and I'm going to blow this up so we have some room. Okay, so remember we said this was going to be the change in y over the change in x. Okay, so we start with our y, and let's just pick the change. So for change, I need two different values, right? So we're going to take these first two values, okay? And I'm going to label them 1 and 2, okay? So if you remember, we're looking for the change in y over the change in x. And if you remember, we said it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's write that. So we got y2, which is 7, minus y1, which is 5, over x2, which is 3, and x1, which is 0. Okay? So all we're going to do now is we're going to subtract. Okay? 7 minus 5 is 2. 3 minus 0 is 3. So our slope is 2/3. Now, what we need to do is we need to make sure that our slope is the same at every point. Okay, because if it's different, it's not a function, and it can't be, it's not a function. So let's find two other points. So I'm going to change my colors here. So let's take these 2 points. So let's say 3, 7, and 6, 9. Okay, so I'm going to take away my 1 and 2, and I'll just rewrite those as 1 and 2. Okay, so y2, which is 6, minus y1, which is 3, over sorry, I went the wrong way. Let me redo that, my fault. So it should be 9 minus 7 over 6 minus 3. Well, let's see, does that give us the same thing? 9 minus 7 is 2, 6 minus 3 is 3, and yes, I get the same thing. Now, I can go down and check each pair, but if I get 1 or 2 and they wind up being the same, I feel fairly confident that the rest of it is the same. So the slope from this, you could write, the slope of this table is 2 over 3, which means I would go up 2 and over 3, and just so you're aware, it is a positive number, so this is going to have a positive slope. Okay, so let's look at another example. We'll look right here at 3. Okay, so again, we need the change in y over the change in x. Now, another way that we can do this is we can just identify what the change in y is. So let's say this. We can look right here. 10 and 7. What's the change? Well, subtract 3. 7 to 4, subtract 3. 4 to 1, subtract 3. 1 to negative 2, subtract 3. So my change in y would be minus 3. Now I could look here, what's my change in x? Negative 2 and 1 is 1. Add 1, add 1, add 1. Okay, so it's negative 3 over 1. So my slope here is negative 3 over 1, or negative 3 by itself. And this slope now, since it's got a negative, is going to be a negative slope, which means it's going to go down from left to right. Okay, so that's two different ways to do this. Okay, so here, okay, if we do table 5, all right, so again, I can calculate change in y, so negative 2 and 0, so that means I'm going to add 2 to get there. I'm going to add 2 to get there. I'm going to add 2, add 2, add 2, and here I'm going to add 3, add 3, add 3, add 3. So my slope, change in y, add 2, over my change in x, add 3. So my slope is 2/3, and since they're both positive, it is positive. Okay, pretty simple. All right, now let's look at number 6. Again, you can do change in y over change in x. I'll show you that again. So I hear, whoops, I used the wrong tool. Here I have those 2 points. I want to find slope from there. So we did, subtraction, okay, to review that. So it's going to be y2, which is 4, minus 5 over 0 minus negative 5, okay, because that 5 is negative. Okay, so now I just subtract. 4 minus 5 is negative 1. 0 minus negative 5, I'm going to add the opposite, so it's going to be 5. So my slope is negative 1 over 5, and since it's got a negative, it is a negative slope. And I will do one more with you, just so you can see this. We'll go back to the other method. Change in y, that's 9 plus 9. Here, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. 17 to 8 is minus 9. 8 to negative 1 is minus 9. Negative 1 to negative 10 is minus 9. Minus 9. Minus 9. So my change in y is minus 9 over my change in x. Here I'm adding 3. I'm adding 3. Adding 3. Adding 3. And adding 3. Okay? So now my slope is negative 9 over 3. And if I divide that, I get negative 3. And my slope would be negative. Remembering here, my slope is rise over run. Okay, so I've shown you some examples, and I've also shown you 2 ways to do this. So please do 7, 2, and 4, and screenshot it, and turn it into your teacher to receive credit for today's assignment. If you have any questions, contact your teacher.